The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Straight ahead on this edition of Perspectives, decriminalizing prostitution in New York, or the decriminalization of sex work. Several elected officials are allegedly drafting a bill that could have the life-changing effect on our community. That's coming up with yours truly, Daren Jaime, on this edition of Perspectives.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Let 'em know. Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
What's your perspective?
And hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Perspectives. I am Daren Jaime. And of course, we thank you for joining us. You can watch Perspectives every week here on BronxNet Channel 67. Also, if you have the other channel, which is Verizon Files, that's Channel 33. And of course, on the web at bronxnet.org. And we bring you all the news, the information, and the things making perspectives. We invite you to stay connected to us on our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. My professional page on Facebook is, of course, Daren C. Jaime. We invite you to stay connected there, find some news as well as some inspiration. But talk about news right here coming up front and center on today's show. My guest that's actually joining me today is passionate, very passionate, about protecting women and girls. She's the chair of the New York City Faith-Based Coalition Against Human Trafficking and Domestic Violence. She's also the co-founder of the Bronx Clergy Roundtable, which is the largest faith-based coalition, boasting approximately 500 members and partners. She's also president of the Bronx Clergy Criminal Justice Roundtable, and as you can imagine, she's at the forefront of opposing this potential bill to legalize prostitution, in other terms, decriminalization. Our guest in studio, none other than the Reverend Q. English, and good to have you back.
Good to be back, Daren. Thank you so much.
Good.
So much.
And you're raising your voice, of course.
I am.
A lot to talk about. First of all, you know, as we talk about the state actually considering this decriminalization, let me go this way. What do you think when you hear the decriminalization of prostitution? What comes to your mind?
Immediately, as also the CEO and founder of Not on My Watch here in New York State, where we intentionally go against trafficking and create measures against domestic violence. When we think of this, we think of an increase in the sex trafficking trade as well. We also think of, when we think of full decriminalization, I also think of legalization. Because when you think about decriminalization, you're thinking about sanctioning, making lawful, allowing, permitting, legalizing. So at the face of decriminalization, full decriminalization, we're talking about, we got legal, the quote-unquote sex work. I do not believe sex is work. You have the legalization of pimps. Now they become entrepreneurs carrying a license for their violence against women. Then you got the legalization of the serial rapist, AKA sex buyers. So here we're legalizing an industry that's built on violence. There is nothing safe about prostitution. And so when they say we want to decriminalize, quote unquote, sex work, they're saying we want to create more harm in our communities, okay? And when you think about it, the ones that are going to be affected, I mean, when I heard this, I thought I came unglued. I am still unglued, Daren.
I can tell, yes.
I am still unglued because they don't see the full ramifications. Because who do you think this is going to affect at the end of the day? Who tops the chart? Let's just, in this whole industry, it's our black and brown communities. So when I think about decriminalizing it, I think about the fact that we are now going to have brothels, not in Country Club, not on Park Avenue, not on Fifth Avenue, but these brothels, they are going to be in our neighborhoods, in the most impoverished neighborhoods where our boys, oh no, forgive me, because we're really talking about 18 and over, right? So our young women and young men will be for sale, black and brown, in legal brothels with men allowed to line up to do whatever they want, however they want, and however long they want, to these individuals in there. These brothels, as a way of education, are going to become the new, what we see on the dark net, that's camouflage, and these guys get away with it. What's going to be happening inside these brothels? We're going to find some of them owned by pimps. We're going to find them owned by the sex trafficking industry. They're going to be the undercover operation for sex trafficking. There is no way that sex trafficking will not increase if prostitution is legalized.
Let me come here and talk to you about what has been your conversation since this has actually come out with elected officials,
Yes.
legal officials. What have you been hearing?
Now, the good news is there is no bill. They're drafting, they're working on the bill, right? The good thing is we can clip its wing before it takes sail. What they're doing right now, apparently they've been going around hearing from that side, right? So what I've realized is that they're not educated. They don't understand the full ramifications of what this really means. I remember talking to one elected official last week. He was like, "Oh, I'm for decrim." What he was saying was, "I'm for protecting those that have been exploited, those that have been victim. Let's get them resources. Let's get them care. Let's not create mass arrest behind something that they're enforced or unforced to do." And so I said, but that's not what this decrim bill is doing. This decrim is asking for full decrim. And the elected officials say to me, "You mean they want to decrim the victim and the victimizer?" I said, "Yes." He said, "No, I do not stand for that." So what I'm seeing with these elected officials, they don't understand. They don't have the full education of the ramifications of what that really looks like.
So both the victim as well as the person that partakes would be decriminalized.
Exactly. So we're talking about legalizing the entire sex trade. And the interesting thing about it, and in all honesty, we have the Caucasian, progressive, liberal decriminalization is rooted in racism. Because even the author of this bill is Caucasian, even though we have two that are standing with them that we were surprised by of Latino descent, who is Salazar and Ramos here in New York. And the leader of this is Assemblyman Gottfried, who is a Caucasian assemblyman that's been in there for quite a long time, that I feel that sitting down and having these conversations of education will change their thinking. For some of these elected officials, it's not on the radar. It's not on their radar yet. So what we're doing is we're making our rounds to assure that they understand that to even think about legalizing this in New York, we will find the most horrific increase of violence that we have not seen in days past on the backs of our black and brown.
Come back with more Reverend Q English talking about the decriminalization of prostitution in New York. It's not a bill yet, but it's something that's in the draft phase. Talk more about that when we return.
retirement happen. After all, you made this vacation happen,
Double points with every purchase?
cleverly merging promotions,
Love it.
cross-referencing travel sites, and booking all your flights with those.
Vouchers. I got us bumped.
They were like, oh, but now they're like, aloha. You aced this vacation. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
I can't change, even if I tried, even if I wanted
And we are back here on Perspectives. If you are just joining us, we are talking about a bill that is in the draft phase, which is the decriminalization of prostitution. Some are becoming more and more aware that the bill is in the draft phase and are speaking out. And one who's been a tremendous advocate for against sex trafficking and also this particular decriminalization of prostitution is none other than Reverend Q English, and she's also the CEO and founder of Not On My Watch, and also pastor at senior pastor at Bronx Christian Fellowship. And we're sharing a little bit about this isn't something that just happens here in New York in terms of a proposal that's been brought to the
Absolutely.
table. It's happened all across the world.
Absolutely, Daren. And you know, you look at places that have fully decriminalized, such as places in Germany and New Zealand, and the documented report is that it has not created a safer environment for those that are prostituted. Instead, it has seen an increase of violence. It has seen an increase in younger children being trafficked, even on the streets, or on their streets in their quote-unquote red light district as young as 12 years old. It has seen an increase of pimps owning brothels. All of this has increased. So we're thinking, oh, you know, if we create less arrests, you know, for those that are in the work, we should see, you know, things can be safer in the profession that they chose. And that is absolutely not true. Absolutely not true. Matter of fact, they said the brothels were popping up like wildfire in these countries that have legalized it. And there were some that had to shut down some of their districts that they had designated as red light districts because of the increase in violence. Now, if you have all of those things documented in every single country that has decriminalized, fully decriminalized this trade, why in the world would you want to bring it to New York? That is the most ridiculous thing I could ever heard of. And then when you think of this, Daren, you got these brothels, you got this option now on the table in our most impoverished neighborhoods, right? And we're thinking, well, this is what they know to do, this is what they can do. No, why not give them options in cooperatives, in expanding their horizons for other types of work? This is not a sustainable, economic sustainable model.
Well, the other part that I just have is just as to an elected official, I have to ask the question, what is it that would want you to put this bill to the table, given the current state and climate of what's going on in the state of New York, and the
Exactly.
things that New Yorkers are dealing with, why, oh why, would we have to address the issue of prostitution? And there's so many other bills that can come forward. Education, you got transportation,
housing, jobs.
Right.
Real jobs.
Right.
Real jobs. Because this is not an economically...
Senior citizens.
Thank you. Senior citizens. Youth.
Right.
Right? How about close down acres, right? All these different initiatives, keeping our kids out of jail. But just because, you know, you're going to keep them out of jail doing this kind of work? They're out of their minds. This is not economically sustainable. There is a start and expiration date. What are they going to do when their body has been used up? What are they going to do when there's been an increase in diseases and STDs and pain and suffering? What are they going to do with the increase in mental health, mental illnesses that is automatically associated with this trade? What are they going to do? These girls, what is going to be the option after you legalize it? And now you're giving our impoverished children that are growing up an option to choose this trade because the money looks good and now their bodies become the commodities. What are you going to do when they can no longer do this type of work? You're not thinking. And so I am charging our elected officials, particularly our black and brown elected officials, and we're going back to Ramos, we're going after Salazar for even thinking to legalize this on the backs of our black and brown. I want every elected official to think long and hard about the ramifications of something like this. You think you're protecting a few? Because it's the minority that's even coming to them. It's only a handful that shows up even to discuss it. You're talking about protecting the few, and it's not us. It's not us, then the majority that's coming to promote it. And so you're talking about protecting a few on the backs of the many. What happens? You create that sex trade. You legalize this little small nucleus today. Tomorrow, it billows. It spreads. It grows. You don't contain it. It grows because now it's an option, just like cannabis. It's going to grow. And so what we're looking at with this thing, it's not going to grow in the non-black and brown. It's going to grow in our communities. And that's why I'm here to declare not on my watch. We need everyone who knows how to get in contact with their elected officials, know who your assemblymen are, know who your senators are, and call them saying, I'm against the it's not even out yet, but you let them know, don't even think about signing anything that will decriminalize sex.
When we talk about decriminalizing sex, the other thing that you've often said is it comes with human trafficking, right? Sex trafficking, human trafficking. And what are we seeing now in New York City? I mean, you got boots on the ground.
Yes.
What are we seeing now? Increase, decrease?
Oh, absolutely increase. Absolutely increase. And this is going to just cause it to plummet. And when I say increase, I have to qualify that because sometimes because of the education and because of the enlightenment, more people come forward, and therefore the numbers rise, right? So that could be a good thing that they're coming forward, but it really isn't because what's happening is we have more trap houses, more stuff is happening on the social media, Instagram, Snapchat. All of these are now the avenues of where they are luring our children into this trade. And so we're seeing an increase in human trafficking. 90% of those that are prostituted have been sex trafficked. Let that be the case. Let that be known. And I need to give you this one example of a brothel where they had, when they first opened, I'm not going to give the name, it's pretty vulgar, but they had like 1,700 men line up, right? They say the average in one of the countries was like 400,000 women in trans serving 1.2 million men, okay? So we're looking at the degradation of the body of women, commodifying, objectification, the use, the abuse, the misuse. We're not going to stand for that in New York State. There is nothing safe about this industry. And even if there's a few that says, this is what I want to do with my body, I would love to be able to sit with those few, to see what other options we can help them with. What can we do to help them see the other options of employment? What can we do to increase their skills? A lot of them were victimized when they were children.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. So they were entrapped at an early age. And so the whole syndrome and their mental anguish, that continues throughout life. And making a decision at a certain amount of time, at a certain age, later on, can be based on what you experienced as trauma in your childhood.
Yeah. So much to be said, legalizing, you know, and then you got people who come from abuse and things of that nature. Reverend Q English, our guest here in studio, talking about the attempt to possibly decriminalize prostitution in New York. It hasn't got to bill for him yet, but certainly in the draft process. We'll be back with more on Perspectives right after this.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs? Totally.
I did. Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls. But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that strollers have the right of way on the sidewalk?
Yes.
Yep, I did. Did you guys
Did you know that kids who eat breakfast have higher GPAs?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to say.
Did you know babies should never touch silver? It's really bad for them.
I knew that.
Did you guys know that statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected.
I'm putting that on my blog.
I just put it in mine.
Back on Perspectives, Daren Jaime here with you, continuing our conversation. If you're just joining us, talking about the possibility of legislation being drafted decriminalizing prostitution. A lot of people are already speaking out. Reverend Q English, of course, one of those at the forefront. And, you know, when we talk about ringing the elected officials' bell, it's also ringing the community's bell, too.
That's what we're doing here today. And Daren, thank you for the voice to do that because, and the opportunity to do that because our community needs to come out of the shadows and into the light and stand up and stand strong. If there's ever a time we need community mobilization, we need black church, brown church, white church mobilization against this atrocity, it is now. I think of my grandson, 10 years old, walking down the street and looking at brothels and seeing it as norm. There's nothing normal about sex work. There's nothing normal about buying sex. There's nothing normal. So then you begin to entice and tempt our black and brown to become buyers, tempt our black and brown to become sellers because of these elected officials, Godfrey, Salazar, Ramos, in behind closed doors, working to draft this bill that will destroy our communities. And when I think about what's happening right now in my sex trafficked industry, and when you hear there's horrific stories of how violent the trade has been and what these men have done to them in all different types of positions, how the trauma still lingers, how the nightmare still lingers. Do you think that's going to be curtailed through legalization? Absolutely not. Why not instead look for ways to create avenues of, like you said, for better education? Why not look for ways of providing resources in our communities? But we've been a free fall for everything, right? Oh, we're the ones with all the shelters. Where's Riverdale and Country Club and these other neighborhoods? Why are we so concentrated with shelters? Oh, because we can be. Why now we're going to be concentrated with brothels? Oh, yeah, we're the ones with the liquor stores on every corner. Oh, yeah, we're attracting more alcoholism. We're the ones with all the different parlors, the massage parlors, etc., in our neighborhoods that have been undercover for trafficking. Why? Because they don't care. Because decriminalization is rooted and will always be rooted in racism. And that is what we're dealing with. Racism, sexism, classism, and every other ism you want to think about. And they don't care because of the color of our skin. And if we don't stand up as black and brown, if we don't stand up for our own children, if our black and brown men don't come to the forefront and stop sitting at the gate and watching this stuff happen to us day in and day out, we are going to lose our next generation, and we're going to allow the government to continue to dump crap on our communities if we don't say anything.
So talk to me about public participation. How does the public participate? What do they do? Here's
what you're going to do. Number one, call Not on My Watch, and we're going to give you even further instructions beyond this show, 646-564-6723. 646-564-6723. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to join our campaign, New York Alliance Against the Legalization of Prostitution, NYAALP. I want you to join that, and once you call my office, you'll get more information on that. In the meantime, call, write, fax your elected official or Gottfried, if you're in his district, Salazar or Ramos, call them and let them know that you're not in agreement with the drafting of a bill that decriminalizes the sex trade. Call them.
Have you reached out to them?
Yes, and I'm going to be having a meeting shortly. One my comrades originally had an initial meeting with him, Gottfried, and I'm about to have a meeting with him and Ramos per my discussion with him yesterday. So we will be having a sit-down meeting. But they did have a meeting with 2 of the 3 of them, and it was not a good outcome. But we're going to keep driving it because the 3 will not make the decision for the many.
So when you say not a good outcome, they said, what did they do? They just heard? They said that we just heard you and that's it?
It was just a heard, take under consideration, but you know what that means. Unless it's a no, unless it's let's see what we need to do to curtail, redraft, rewrite, then that means they're still marching forward for full decriminalization. And what we're going to do is we're going to snip that bill before it can even take sale. So yes, I have a meeting coming up with Godfrey and Ramos in hopes of coming to a meeting of the minds in hopes of destroying the bill. But even if they decide not to, it still won't fly. Because by the time we're done with all the rounds of those that we need to meet with, this whole thing will be dismantled. But we need the community to help us.
All right, Reverend Q English, we're going to have to leave it there. CEO and founder of Not On My Watch. She got her contact information where you can become involved, talk about the decriminalization of prostitution, a very heavy topic here in New York. I just don't get it. There's a whole lot more things we be talking about here in New York, many more other needs amongst our community than to talk about the decriminalization of prostitution. But want to give a voice to that, hear a perspective on that, and you get the opportunity to hear and also do something about it. So, Reverend Q, thank you so much for coming to share with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Daren, and giving us the voice and the platform.
No problem.
Thank you.
Reverend Q English is what we do. And I want to thank you for watching another edition of Perspectives. And that about wraps it up for us here on the show. Until next time we meet, we encourage you, stay safe, share your perspective with somebody else. You don't know, it just might make a difference in somebody else's life. Take care.
Because it might make a difference in someone else's life.
What's your perspective? Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.